October 23, 1944. Formosa Strait, somewhere between Taiwan and mainland China. USS Tang, submarine SS-306, surfaces in complete darkness. Commander Richard O'Kane stands on the bridge, peering through binoculars at the horizon. His radar operator reports multiple contacts, a Japanese convoy. At least 10 ships, heavily escorted, carrying reinforcements and supplies to support the Battle of Leyte. This is the moment O'Kane has been waiting for. Most submarine commanders would track the convoy from a distance, fire a few torpedoes from safety, then dive and run. That's the smart play, the safe play. O'Kane doesn't do safe. He's going to take Tang directly into the middle of that convoy. On the surface, at night, with enemy destroyers hunting him and searchlights sweeping the water. His officers think he's insane. His crew trusts him completely, because in 18 months, Richard O'Kane has transformed Tang into the most lethal submarine in the Pacific. And in the next 3 days, he'll accomplish something every expert said was impossible. He'll sink 13 enemy ships, more than any submarine commander had ever sunk in such a short time. More than most submarines sank in their entire careers. The Japanese will call it a massacre. The U.S. Navy will call it the most successful submarine patrol in history. And Richard O'Kane will prove that the most dangerous weapon in submarine warfare isn't the torpedoes. It's the captain's willingness to attack when everyone else would retreat. Before diving into the story, I need to tell you something. This channel isn't for everyone. These videos are for intelligent adults, especially those 65 and over, who appreciate deep storytelling, historical accuracy, and the patience to listen to a complete narrative. No gimmicks, no shortcuts, just the extraordinary true stories of World War II told the way they deserve to be told. If that's what you're looking for, you're in the right place. Richard Hetherington O'Kane was born February 2nd, 1911, in Dover, New Hampshire. He was the youngest of 4 children. His father was a university professor of entomology. His family valued education and service. There was nothing extraordinary about his childhood. He attended Phillips Academy, Andover, and graduated in 1930. Then he received an appointment to the United States Naval Academy at Annapolis. The Naval Academy in the early 1930s was rigorous, engineering disciplines, mechanical and electrical training, naval architecture, 4 years of intensive preparation for naval service. O'Kane graduated May 31st, 1934, commissioned as an ensign. His class photo shows a young officer with an unremarkable expression. Nothing suggested he would become the deadliest submarine commander in American history. His first assignments were surface vessels, USS Chester, a heavy cruiser, where he served as deck and gunnery officer, then USS Pruitt, a destroyer. Standard duty for a young naval officer. He learned ship handling, navigation, gunnery. But O'Kane wanted something different. In 1938, he applied for submarine school. The submarine force was elite. Smaller crews, more dangerous missions, higher standards. You had to volunteer. You had to qualify. O'Kane qualified. He was assigned to USS Argonaut in July 1938. Argonaut was an old submarine, one of the largest in the fleet. O'Kane served as engineering officer, then executive officer. He learned the submarine from the inside out. The cramped spaces, the constant maintenance, the psychology of men living underwater for weeks at a time. When Pearl Harbor was attacked December the 7th, 1941, Argonaut was on patrol off Midway. O'Kane and his crew heard about the attack by radio. Their war had begun. But Argonaut was outdated, plagued by mechanical problems, overdue for overhaul. In early 1942, O'Kane was transferred to a brand new submarine, USS Wahoo, SS-238. He would serve as executive officer. This assignment changed everything. Wahoo's first commanding officer was Lieutenant Commander Marvin Kennedy. Competent but cautious. Standard tactics, safe approaches. Wahoo's first 2 patrols were unremarkable. Then Kennedy was replaced. The new captain was Lieutenant Commander Dudley Walker Morton. Everyone called him Mush. Mush Morton was different. Aggressive, innovative, fearless. He didn't believe in the standard submarine doctrine of cautious attacks from distance. He believed submarines should hunt on the surface, close with the enemy, attack at point-blank range, and kill everything in sight. Morton changed how Wahoo operated. In standard submarine practice, the captain manned the periscope during attacks while the executive officer coordinated the crew. Morton reversed it. He put O'Kane on the periscope. O'Kane would spot targets, calculate ranges and angles, set up firing solutions. Morton would command the boat, make tactical decisions, order the attacks. It was unconventional. It worked. Wahoo's 3rd Patrol, January 1943, was conducted in the Yellow Sea between China and Japanese-occupied Korea. Morton took Wahoo into shallow, heavily patrolled waters that most captains avoided. He attacked everything he found. Wahoo sank 9 ships in that single patrol. 9. It was unprecedented. The combination of Morton's aggression and O'Kane's precision was devastating. They hunted together like predators. O'Kane served 5 war patrols on Wahoo. They sank 19 enemy ships. Wahoo became legendary in the submarine force. Morton and O'Kane became the most feared team in the Pacific. But by July 1943, O'Kane had earned his own command. He was promoted to lieutenant commander and assigned as prospective commanding officer of a new submarine under construction at Mare Island Naval Shipyard, USS Tang, SS-306. O'Kane left Wahoo in July 1943. 4 months later, in October, Wahoo was lost with all hands, including Mush Morton, sunk in the La Perouse Strait by Japanese depth charges. 79 men dead. O'Kane was devastated. Morton had been his mentor, his friend, the man who taught him how to hunt. But O'Kane couldn't grieve. He had a submarine to command. USS Tang was commissioned October 15th, 1943. She was a Balao-class submarine. 311 feet long, 1,500 tons displacement. Crew of 87 men. She carried 24 torpedoes and mounted a 5-inch deck gun. She was modern, fast, and deadly. O'Kane trained his crew relentlessly. He implemented the tactics he'd learned from Morton. Daylight surface cruising with extra lookouts. Periscope drills to train spotters in ship recognition and range calculation. Methods for night surface attacks. He drilled them until every man could perform his job perfectly in complete darkness under combat conditions. Tang departed Pearl Harbor, January 22, 1944, for her first war patrol. O'Kane took her to the Caroline Islands area, hunting for Japanese shipping supporting operations in the Central Pacific. February 17, 1944. Tang's first kill. O'Kane spotted a convoy before sunrise. He fired 4 torpedoes at a cargo ship, Gyoten Maru. 3 hits. The ship exploded and sank. Japanese escorts responded with depth charges. Tang dove deep and evaded. 5 days later, O'Kane made a night surface attack on another convoy. 2 more ships sunk. Over the next week, Tang sank 2 more vessels. 5 ships total on the first patrol. O'Kane returned to Pearl Harbor March 1944. The patrol had been a success, but O'Kane was just getting started. Tang's second patrol, April to June 1944, was assigned to lifeguard duty near Truk. Lifeguard meant positioning the submarine near enemy territory during Allied air raids to rescue any downed pilots. On April the 29th and May 1st, during carrier strikes on Truk, Tang rescued 22 American airmen, men whose planes had been shot down, who would have drowned or been captured without Tang's intervention. O'Kane maneuvered his submarine through enemy waters, under air attack, to pull pilots from the water. One pilot later wrote that seeing Tang surface to rescue him was the most beautiful sight he'd ever witnessed. Tang returned to Pearl Harbor with 22 grateful aviators. No ship sunk on that patrol, but 22 American lives saved. The Navy awarded Tang a Presidential Unit citation. Tang's third patrol, June to July 1944, was different. O'Kane took Tang into the Yellow Sea, the same hunting grounds where he and Morton had devastated Japanese shipping on Wahoo. He intended to match that success. June 24th, 1944, O'Kane found a convoy, 4 large cargo ships with escorts. He attacked in daylight, firing multiple torpedoes. Within hours, he'd sunk 4 ships: Tamahoko Maru, Tainan Maru, Nasusen Maru, and Kenichi Maru. 4 ships in one day. Over the next 3 weeks, Tang sank 6 more vessels, 10 ships total. 39,160 tons of enemy shipping sent to the bottom. It was the most successful submarine patrol of the war. No submarine had ever sunk that many ships in a single patrol. Tang returned to Pearl Harbor in July 1944. O'Kane was awarded the Navy Cross. His crew was exhausted, but proud. They were the best submarine in the Pacific. Tang's 4th patrol, August to September 1944, took her to Japanese home waters off the coast of Honshu, dangerous territory, constant air patrols, numerous escorts, shallow waters. O'Kane didn't care. He hunted aggressively. August 11th, Tang attacked 2 freighters with escorts. O'Kane fired 3 torpedoes at the larger ship. 1 hit the boilers. The freighter exploded. Japanese escorts dropped 38 depth charges. Tang dove deep, evaded, resurfaced. August 14th, O'Kane sank a Japanese patrol yacht with the deck gun. 8 days later, a patrol boat. August the 23rd, a large transport, 8,135 tons. August 25th, a tanker and an escort. 4 more ships sunk. Tang returned to Pearl Harbor September 1944 with her torpedo tubes empty and 4 more kills to her record. O'Kane had now sunk 19 ships in 4 patrols. He was approaching the record set by Morton on Wahoo. But O'Kane wasn't done. Tang's 5th patrol would be legendary. September 24th, 1944, Tang departed Pearl Harbor for her 5th war patrol. O'Kane's assigned area was the Formosa Strait, the narrow passage between Taiwan and mainland China. It was one of the most dangerous areas in the Pacific. Shallow waters, constant Japanese patrols, heavy air coverage. It was also a vital choke point. Japanese convoys carrying supplies from Southeast Asia to the home islands had to pass through the strait. O'Kane intended to position Tang directly in that shipping lane and kill everything that moved. Tang stopped at Midway on September 27th to refuel. Then she headed west, alone, into enemy waters. Other submarines were operating in coordinated attack groups nearby. O'Kane declined to join them. He preferred to hunt alone. No coordination required, no shared targets, no restrictions on his tactics. Tang arrived in the patrol area early October. For 2 weeks, O'Kane hunted through the strait. October 10th, night attack. 2 cargo ships sunk. October 11th, another freighter. By October 23rd, Tang had expended most of her torpedoes. She had 8 remaining. A smart commander would have headed for home. Mission accomplished, targets sunk, crew exhausted. O'Kane stayed. His radar operator reported a large convoy approaching. O'Kane tracked them through the night, positioning Tang for attack. October 23rd, 1944, 2 a.m. Tang surfaced. Complete darkness, no moon. O'Kane could see the convoy silhouettes against the horizon. At least 10 ships, multiple escorts. He ordered full speed ahead. Tang charged directly toward the convoy. In most submarine attacks, you fire from distance, then dive and run. O'Kane went in on the surface at high speed, directly into the middle of the enemy formation. It was insane. It was brilliant. The Japanese escorts weren't expecting a submarine to be on the surface in the middle of their convoy. By the time they realized what was happening, O'Kane was already firing. Tang's torpedoes streaked through the water. 2 large transports hit. Explosions lit up the night. O'Kane maneuvered Tang between burning ships, fired again. Another hit. A freighter exploded. Japanese searchlights swept the water. Escort destroyers turned toward Tang, guns firing. O'Kane ordered emergency dive. Tang slipped beneath the surface, just as shells impacted where she'd been seconds before. 2 ships sunk. October 23rd, daylight hours. Tang submerged, tracking another convoy. O'Kane studied their pattern through the periscope all day, calculating exactly where they'd be after dark. October 24th, after midnight. Tang surfaced again. O'Kane had found another heavily escorted convoy, transports loaded with troops and supplies, heading for Leyte. Crated aircraft piled on their decks. These ships were critical to the Japanese war effort. O'Kane attacked. He maneuvered Tang into firing position and launched a spread of torpedoes. The first transport exploded, then the second. An adjacent tanker burst into flames. Japanese escorts converged from all sides. O'Kane didn't retreat. He charged forward at high speed, weaving between enemy ships. He fired again. The tanker exploded in a massive fireball. A transport went dead in the water. An escort destroyer turned toward Tang, guns blazing. O'Kane fired a single torpedo. The destroyer took the hit amidships and broke in half. 7 more ships sunk. In less than 24 hours, O'Kane had destroyed 9 enemy vessels. His crew was exhausted. The boat stank of diesel fuel, sweat, and fear. But they trusted their captain completely. If O'Kane said attack, they attacked. October 25th, 1944. Tang had 2 torpedoes remaining. O'Kane should have withdrawn. He was deep in enemy waters, surrounded by searching destroyers, low on fuel. Every submarine doctrine said return to base. O'Kane found 1 more convoy. Late in the day, Tang's radar picked up another group of ships heading north through the strait. O'Kane surfaced and closed for attack. He maneuvered into position. He fired his last 2 torpedoes at a large transport. Both torpedoes ran true. Both hit. The transport exploded and sank. 13 ships. In 3 days, from October 23rd to October 25th, Richard O'Kane and USS Tang had sunk 13 Japanese ships. It was unprecedented. No submarine, no captain, had ever accomplished anything comparable. 22 of the 24 torpedoes Tang fired on this patrol found their targets. 22 hits out of 24 shots. It was the most successful 3 days in submarine warfare history. But October 25th wasn't over. Just after midnight, Tang spotted a crippled transport from an earlier attack. It was limping along without escort, trying to reach port. O'Kane couldn't resist 1 final kill. Tang still had 2 torpedoes. The torpedo crew had been repairing 2 faulty weapons throughout the patrol. Both were finally loaded and ready. O'Kane positioned Tang for a surface shot. He fired the first torpedo. It ran straight and hit. The transport exploded. O'Kane fired the second torpedo. 20 seconds after launch, the crew on Tang's bridge saw something horrifying. The torpedo's track curved. Instead of running straight, it turned in a wide arc. The gyroscope had malfunctioned. The torpedo was circling back toward Tang. O'Kane ordered emergency speed, full rudder, trying to turn Tang out of the torpedo's path. But submarines don't turn quickly. the torpedo was faster. At 2:30 a.m. on October 25th, Tang's own torpedo struck her in the stern. The explosion was catastrophic. The after-torpedo room flooded instantly. The 7 men inside died in seconds. The engine rooms flooded. Tang began sinking stern first. O'Kane was on the bridge with 8 other men. The explosion threw them into the water. Inside the submarine, 78 men were trapped as compartments flooded. Tang sank in 180 feet of water. Some men tried to escape using Momsen lungs, primitive breathing devices stored aboard for emergency escape. The water was shallow enough that escape was theoretically possible. But the conditions were terrible. Complete darkness, panic, carbon dioxide building up in remaining air pockets, Japanese destroyers overhead dropping depth charges. 13 men attempted escape from the forward torpedo room. Only 5 reached the surface alive. By morning, 9 men total had survived. O'Kane and 2 others from the bridge who'd managed to stay afloat through the night. 1 officer who'd escaped from the flooded conning tower. 5 men who'd used Momsen lungs to escape from the sunken submarine. All 9 were captured by a Japanese destroyer. Of Tang's crew of 87 men, 78 died when the submarine sank. 9 survived. The Japanese realized quickly who they'd captured. Commander Richard O'Kane, the most successful submarine commander in the Pacific. The captain who'd sunk more ships than any other American submariner. They took O'Kane and the other survivors to Ofuna, a secret naval interrogation center near Yokosuka. The Japanese called it the torture farm. The prisoners were classified as special prisoners. The Japanese claimed that American submarine attacks on merchant ships were war crimes because most merchant crews were civilians. This classification meant the survivors received no protection under international law. The Red Cross was not notified. The men were put on half rations. Interrogations were brutal. Beatings, torture, psychological abuse. The Japanese wanted to know Tang's tactics, how O'Kane had been so successful, where American submarines were operating, what technologies they used. O'Kane gave them nothing. Name, rank, serial number. Nothing else. He endured months of interrogation and abuse. The other 8 survivors were treated the same way. Later, they were transferred to Omori prisoner of war camp near Tokyo. There, they were forced to clear wreckage from Allied bombing raids. Malnutrition, disease, more beatings. By August 1945, O'Kane weighed 88 pounds. He was dying. They all were. Then Japan surrendered. August 15, 1945. American forces liberated Omori camp days later. O'Kane and the 8 other Tang survivors had survived 10 months in Japanese captivity. They were the only survivors of Tang's final patrol. Richard O'Kane returned to the United States a hero. The Navy had already compiled the record of Tang's final patrol from O'Kane's pre-capture reports and from Japanese shipping records captured after the war. The numbers were extraordinary. Tang's 5th patrol. 13 ships sunk in 3 days. 22 torpedo hits out of 24 fired. Over 100,000 tons of enemy shipping destroyed. It was the most successful submarine patrol in American naval history. O'Kane's total score across 5 patrols. 24 ships confirmed sunk by official Navy records. Some historians credit him with 31 ships, including damaged vessels. Either way, Richard O'Kane was the most successful submarine commander in United States Navy history. March 27, 1946. The White House, South Lawn. President Harry Truman presented Richard O'Kane with the Medal of Honor. The citation read, "For conspicuous gallantry and intrepidity, at the risk of his life above and beyond the call of duty as commanding officer of USS Tang, operating against two enemy Japanese convoys on October the 23rd and 24th, 1944, during her fifth and last war patrol. O'Kane also received 3 Navy Crosses, 3 Silver Stars, the Legion of Merit, with Valor Device, the Purple Heart, and numerous other decorations. He was the most decorated submarine officer in American history. Tang received 4 Battle Stars and 2 Presidential Unit citations. O'Kane remained in the Navy after the war. He served in various commands, testified at Japanese war crimes, trials against the men who tortured him and his crew, served as executive officer of Submarine Tender Nereus, commanded Submarine Division 32, attended Armed Forces Staff College, became commanding officer of the Submarine School at New London, Connecticut, promoted to captain in 1953, commanded Submarine Tender Sperry, commanded Submarine Squadron 7, attended Naval War College, served with the Ship Characteristics Board in Washington, D.C. On July 1, 1957, Richard O'Kane retired from active duty after 26 years of service. Based on his combat record, he was simultaneously promoted to Rear Admiral on the retired list. Admiral O'Kane lived in Petaluma, California. He remained connected to the submarine community. He visited submarine bases, spoke to new crews, attended memorials. He wrote about his experiences, though he rarely discussed the loss of Tang. That wound never healed. The knowledge that 78 men had died under his command, the fact that they'd been killed by their own torpedo, didn't make it easier to accept. In 1998, 4 years after O'Kane's death, the Navy commissioned USS O'Kane, DDG-77, an Arleigh Burke-class destroyer named in his honor. Richard O'Kane died February 16, 1994, in Petaluma, California. He was 83 years old. He died of pneumonia. He was buried at Arlington National Cemetery with full military honors. His wife, Ernestine, the woman whose memory had sustained him through 8 hours in the water and 10 months in Japanese captivity, is buried beside him. When you study Richard O'Kane's career, you see something important about military leadership and combat effectiveness. O'Kane wasn't superhuman. He didn't have special abilities. What he had was training, tactical brilliance, absolute confidence in his methods, and the ability to inspire his crew to follow him into situations where most men would have retreated. He learned from the best. Mush Morton taught him that submarines were offensive weapons, meant to hunt and kill aggressively. O'Kane took those lessons and refined them into a system. Careful planning, relentless training, precise execution, and absolute aggression in combat. His tactics were unconventional. Surface attacks at night when most commanders stayed submerged, charging directly into convoy formations instead of firing from distance, pressing attacks even when escorts were converging, using speed and maneuver instead of stealth. Every expert said these tactics were too dangerous. O'Kane proved they worked. The numbers don't lie. Tang fired 24 torpedoes on her final patrol. 22 found their marks. 22 out of 24, that's 92% accuracy. Most submarines considered 30 to 40% accuracy good. O'Kane achieved 92% because he got close. Point-blank range, less than 1,000 yards, sometimes as close as 500 yards. At that range, you can't miss. But at that range, the enemy can't miss you either. That's why most captains didn't attack that way. Too dangerous. O'Kane didn't care about danger. He cared about killing enemy ships. In 3 days, October 23rd to 25th, 1944, he sank 13 enemy vessels, more ships than most submarines sank in their entire careers. It was impossible. Everyone said so. Richard O'Kane did it anyway. The tragedy is that Tang's success destroyed her. If that final torpedo had functioned properly, Tang would have returned to Pearl Harbor with the greatest patrol record in submarine history. The crew would have been heroes. O'Kane would have continued commanding Tang through more patrols, sinking more ships. Instead, 78 men died in the dark water of the Formosa Strait, killed by mechanical failure in their own weapon. O'Kane survived to receive the Medal of Honor, but he never forgot the 78 men who didn't come home. For the rest of his life, he carried their memory. The Navy said it was impossible to sink 13 ships in 3 days. Richard O'Kane responded by doing exactly that. Then he survived the sinking of his submarine, 10 months in Japanese prison camps, and returned to serve his country for another 13 years. That's not inspiration. That's just history. The facts, verified and documented. If you want to join us on this mission to uncover the extraordinary stories of courage and determination from World War II, please subscribe and turn on notifications. These stories of people who refuse to accept impossible deserve to be remembered and celebrated. And finally, we have one question we always ask. Where are you watching from? Our community stretches across the entire globe, from the United States to the United Kingdom, from Canada to Australia, from Germany to Japan, from India to Brazil. You're not just a viewer, you're part of a community keeping these memories alive. Please drop a comment and let us know your city or state, and tell us if someone in your family served. Did your grandfather serve on submarines in the war? Did someone in your family face impossible odds and survive? Did they accomplish something everyone said couldn't be done? Share their stories with us. Thank you for watching, and thank you for remembering the warriors who proved that the word impossible is just another challenge to overcome.